Can you see that behind us?
Yes, the car.
I'll take you over there.
It's inside or outside.
Yeah. Look at that.
So if anyone has been following along today on Instagram, we shared a picture of our carter, which is being reclothed. And I will share more video of that tomorrow as well. But wow, what a project.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited.
It's going to be so good.
Project here.
If you take the old and the new and put them together, it's exciting.
Well, you're going to show the video, right?
Yep. I'll have some video tomorrow and then a big video start to finish once we get it all done, because obviously it's not quite done yet.
Yes.
But
just started.
They say hopefully Friday.
Yeah, I only got them a hotel room till Friday. They're gonna have to sleep in my guest room. They're from
there are those lovely twin beds.
Right.
They're from Spartansburg, South Carolina. Scott and Willie. They're great guys. Boy, they are so knowledgeable. You should see them. They know just what to do.
And they came all the way up, which is awesome, to take care of it.
They did what?
So they came all the way up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they drove here in 2 big trucks with all these tools, these giant tool chests loaded.
Let me show a tool chest.
Show a tool chest.
I have tool chest envy.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
That is a big tool chest.
Yeah, and this is the rolls of card to go on. This is the small one being done.
Yeah. They're so clean.
Yeah.
They're so clean right now.
I know. Can we keep them clean?
Yes.
Definitely not.
You card my yarn.
That's him.
Oh, good.
Right over there.
Excellent.
Yeah. Katie says we should card her yarn next.
Yeah, I got to get mine over here.
Yeah, now all of a sudden everybody's going to have things to be carded after this. Katie, you're on our list of people to card for. Yeah. And frankly, Katie's always on our list of people to card for. She has built quite a little business. I think that's a great way to introduce Katie Sullivan to you all. Her business is called Bobolink Yarns, and it's founded on a simple premise that there are people who are good at raising sheep for fleece, and there's stores that are really good at selling yarn to knitters. And there's not much in between. Sure, there's a mill, but we kind of sit here waiting for wool to come, and then it goes back to the farmer to sell to the store, as you know from our community Zooms. Katie saw there was a gap in there that somebody needed to go to the farms and get the wool, sort it out so only the good wool came to the mill, and then take the beautiful yarn that gets made, dye it interesting colors that she knows yarn stores want to have, and then take it to the stores. And I can't make this up. Every single yarn store in Vermont carries Bobolink brand yarn, thanks to Katie Sullivan. No tourist who knits, who visits Vermont, leaves Vermont without a piece of Vermont that Katie has sourced. It's amazing. It's a one-woman show.
We need to move somewhere because I'm having trouble hearing and I can't hold this like this.
You can't hold it? You want to go to the office?
Let's just come over here and see if we can hear that over here.
It looks like Carol and MJ are relocating.
Here we go.
But, Katie, I'm so excited to have you on tonight. When we had our first meeting with you and I got to hear about your projects and what you're up to, I mean, it's just endlessly fascinating sort of what you've put together. And it really goes beyond just coordinating a yarn line. It's really being informed about all the different breeds of sheep and having extensive fiber knowledge too. Mm-hmm. So definitely we want to get into that tonight while we're talking to you. And I just want to give people a few more minutes to join. So while people are joining, I'm going to go ahead and go through a few announcements, and then Mary Jeanne will do them again at the end. So for anyone who's listening and is in the New York area, don't forget that Central New York Fiber Festival is this upcoming weekend. And Mary Jeanne and Carol are going to drive their van to the festival. They're swinging by the Finger Lakes on the way. And then they're going to be at Central New York Fiber Festival on Saturday only. So we've got a lot of pickups and drop-offs for wool lined up on that trip. But this is sort of a last call.
You should follow Central New York on Instagram.
Yes.
They're showing a lot of great previews.
That's a nice little show.
Yeah.
We're excited to be there and appreciate the opportunity. And, you know, I had something to do on Sunday and I couldn't be there on Sunday. And they said, that's all right, because there's so many farms in Central New York who need access to us. And with freight and the mileage, it's only like 2.5 hours. But by the time you drive here and back, it's 5 hours. Right. And that's too much if you're a busy farmer. So everyone's happy with this arrangement.
Yeah, so if you are listening and you're a farm and you haven't gotten back to us yet about whether or not you're going to be dropping off, you need to get back to us ASAP so that we have you on the schedule. I think Friday's probably full in the Finger Lakes region, right, Mary Jeanne? Or do you have any more room on Fridays?
Well, we got a pickup in Syracuse at noon on Friday. We have a pickup in Seneca Falls at 12:30. Watkins Glen at 1:30.
Lunch sometime.
No.
Before the first pickup.
Our pickup in Ithaca is at the Wegmans parking lot.
Oh, good.
And then to Cazenovia for an overnight. We even have somebody meeting us in the hotel parking lot to pick up his order that he didn't want to come all the way here to get. So even the hotel parking lot has now become a marketplace. Right. Oh, we have 2 with 3 people meeting us in the Wegmans parking lot. We'll be sitting there a while.
Now we'll eat some cookies.
Yeah, we will. One of those tubs of 15. No, it's 20 for $15. Okay. No, it's 10 for. It doesn't matter. We're gonna count them and split them.
All right.
We can't see you guys at all. You need to come into frame a little bit more.
The only way we can hear is we're standing really close to the phone.
Yeah.
So if
I have to just look at this beautiful fiber.
If I stand
that's
here,
fine.
I can't hear you. Well,
that's fine.
I have one more announcement, Hannah, for people going to H&H on June 23rd. It's official. We have a panel. It's on. The topic is sustainability, green yarn stores, sourcing locally, and educating your customers. It's a real first for H&H, and I'm really happy to be working with Abby Glassenberg, who is the head of the Craft Industry Alliance. She gave me kind of free rein to put together the panel, and it includes a store you sell to, Katie, Must Love Yarn in Burlington, Vermont. And Ariana, the manager, will be on the panel. Alicia Monks from Englishman Bay Handmade. Those are those little felting kits for little sheep from her own family's farm's wool. Our friend Andrea from 614.
There's one. Hold it back.
Oh, she's got one.
So cute.
Look, there it is.
Yep.
Andrea from 614 Knit Studio.
She's on here.
Oh, good. Hi, Andrea. And she's from Columbus, Ohio. And then rounding out the panel is a new friend, Gina Pantastico from Cloud9 Fabrics.
Wow.
She's the co-founder, and all of their fabric is sourced only from sustainable, organic, fair trade. It's the safest quilting cotton you can buy, which I wish I'd known before I made what I made for little Daisy. Maybe one of my kids will have another baby, and I can get Cloud9 Fabrics for the next quilt.
Well, for anyone who doesn't know, H&H is it's an industry show. It's coming to Chicago in June, and so it's coming up So this is it's the same H&H that they hold in Cologne. This is the first American version of the show, and it's being really carefully coordinated. So it's definitely going to be a good industry event.
And it's
other big
free for CIA members, right? Or very low.
I think they get a discounted ticket.
The 23rd and 24th.
It's also on the 22nd, but Carol and I are just going the morning of the 23rd, and our panel is also the morning of the.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's a little tight.
All right.
You guys will have a great time. I can't wait to hear how it goes and see the photos and share them with everybody. We have another big regional announcement, the New York Textile Act passed.
It's incredible.
You want to talk about that?
The New York Textile Act passed the Assembly and the Senate in the final hours of the Senate. A lot of the crafting of that is thanks to the Hudson Valley Textile Project Sustainability Committee, who worked very closely with Assemblywoman Carrie Warner, who's our Assembly member here, to really get the act to include a lot of economic development things that will help farmers, makers, manufacturers. Now, it's not signed by the governor yet, so we're keeping our fingers crossed, but we have no reason to think she won't sign it because it passed the Assembly unanimously and with only one no vote in the Senate. And we think that no vote was somebody whose finger slipped on the voting thing and they just bumped the no button. So we're going to assume that was a voting error. So we can say it was all unanimous. So it's very exciting. And there's going to be a press release coming from Senator Michelle Henchy and Carrie Warner, a joint release, and we'll get that posted when it's available. So that's all our news. I really want to talk to
let's get talking. Let's jump into the fun part.
Yeah, really.
Thanks for waiting so patiently while we cycle through the news, Katie.
I want to hear the
story.
Yeah, I don't actually know about this bill because I'm over in Vermont, so I'll have to look into that and find out what we're talking about without derailing too much.
Well, it would be kind of cool if Vermont were to do a copycat legislation, because I think Vermont with Green Mountain Spinnery and Kingdom Fiber Mill is very well suited. We are missing some pieces in the supply chain also. You could use larger scale dyeing. I think our scouring that we're developing here will be big enough to scour all of Vermont's wool too. At least that's the plan. But who knows, there may be other things in Vermont, including the wool pellet project. So let's talk, Katie.
Okay. Well, I'm going to one of our legislators' farms tomorrow morning to pick up his Romney. So,
we have an N. It's what you're telling us.
Now you need to look it up before Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being invited to present to everybody today. I can just start off by talking a little bit about Bobolink Yarns and how it came about, if you'd like.
We'd love that, Katie. Go ahead.
So for a number of years, I had raised sheep and my numbers gradually grew to around 50 sheep. And so I had a farm with 50 sheep that I was raising for both meat and wool. And I was finding that I was having really kind of more success selling yarn than I was having selling lamb. Lamb's a little bit of a saturated market in Vermont if you're not like marketing outside the state or marketing in a specialty way. But like all my neighbors who wanted lamb kind of already had some. So I kind of became more focused on the yarn aspect. And one day I was talking to some friends and they're like, you know, we have a barn full of wool and like we're so busy with our 50 Romneys that like we don't have time to really deal with that wool. And like since we're not like yarn marketing experts and we just have kind of no bandwidth for that, like we want to sell this wool, but we're not going to make any money if we sell it like at the lowest price to the wool pool, right? Like, and it's like good wool, like it could be used differently than the wool pool would use it. And meanwhile, because I was having success selling my yarn, yarn shops were contacting me saying, you know, we'd love to carry more local yarn and we want to work with local farms, but like farms that do kind of the fall, like show circuit come and they want to take their consignment inventory with them and take it on the show circuit, and falls when we need yarn in the shop, right? So there was kind of a mismatch between like Vermont's yarn availability and like the yarn shops wanting to have local yarn, and like yarn actually being available to shops, and then also a lot of shepherds with barns full of wool that they weren't using. So it was just the thought that I had to like connect A to B, which is kind of like the main function of doing that is kind of taking the time to sort the wool and prepare the wool correctly, and especially to look at the qualities that that wool has, and like talk to knitters about why it would be nice to knit your shawl out of Romney, and why it would be nice to knit your hat out of Cheviot, right? To like be able to kind of promote and discuss these breeds that I'm seeing in Vermont's and New England's larger flocks, and like what's useful about that. So the first yarn I made was a fiber called Scholarship Romney. And so it was a set of Romney. And then I quickly found, I just wrote to some other shepherds I knew just from, various cheap conferences and listservs and such, and said like, hey, what do you do with your wool? And the like unanimous answer for every flock with more than 50 ewes was, nothing. Do you want it? Do you want it? Could you come tomorrow? Are you available soon? And so that's how Bobolink Yarns began. I'm holding a cone of some of my natural gray Cheviot right here, which is actually one of my most successful sellers. This is made by Battenkill. This is a gorgeous 3-ply worsted weight Cheviot that Mary Jeanne processes so lovingly. And something I've really appreciated is how much wisdom and experience and advice Battenkill can share to help me make sure that like when we're making this yarn, I usually don't come into it with like it has to be this at exactly this spec. Like we look at the wool together and we think like, all right, what's the best? Like what are the strengths of this and what are the weaknesses, and like how can we make it the nicest thing we can offer?
So when you got started, Katie, obviously you had sheep.
Yes.
Did you already have an extensive, 4-H background? Were you already really comfortable with grading wool, or is that something you kind of learned along the way?
That is largely something I've learned along the way. A lot of it was really trial and error. The first sheep I got were kind of some like random mutts. And so they had kind of a wide variety of wolves on them, right? Like, and so I kind of in like having them shorn and sorting them really carefully, like learned what I'm looking for and what I'm not looking for. And that kind of led me down a path of doing research. And I really can't thank enough. The Fleece and Fiber Sourcebook is one book that like is as useful a reference as anything.
I have my copy right here.
And then there's the other one from the gals in New Zealand that was about in sheep's clothing. Those are the two that I've gone back to again and again. Yep, Fleece and Fiber Sourcebook, in sheep's clothing, and Knitter's Book of Yarn.
And Clara Park's Book of Wool and Clara Park's Book of Yarn.
Yeah. Those are a great one to start on. But that Fleece and Fiber Sourcebook, I use that all the time too. And I am not producing, a yarn or going to farms and researching them the way you are nearly as much. But I just find it helpful to have even as a knitter or as a spinner. Deb should really give us a cut for how much we recommend this book.
Deb is so lovely. I tried to ply her with beer and pretzels with Urset's cheese dip when I saw her in Fort Collins last summer. And she accepted one beer and it doesn't eat many pretzels. So I feel like I still owe her another couple of beers.
We just need to start throwing drinks at Deb whenever we'll be like, Deb, you need more drinks. Everybody buy Deb a drink. She's fantastic.
It was and really just like so studying through that, and really just the value of taking the time to gain the experience. I mean, the handy thing about working with flocks where the wool is kind of already like a waste product is that the stakes aren't so high, right? Like we're not talking about a group of 5 sheep where we are trying to like, we're hoping to get a whole 10 pounds out of it. Like I'm working with a situation where like it's already like so close to being in the compost that I really just have to like high grade as best I can, and also like talk to the shepherds about like their management and talk about like, all right, why are these things in this, why is this wool in this pile? And why is this wool what I'm going to take? And like do what education I can. One of the things that's really come up in like other talks that I've given is how much like I have to show up at a farm accepting that like it might not be worth the farmer's time to like manage their sheep completely differently to realize like $15 from each sheep's fleece instead of 10. Right.
Yeah.
So I kind of am accepting like I accept like what is available, and then it's my job to make that product into something that makes a really fine yarn, and that is the tactile sensation of like going through each fleece and going through fleece after fleece after fleece and being able to make a call, touch it to my face, touch it to my wrist, and say like yes, no, and just like.
The trade-off there being that, let's say at first the farmer says, oh, I've got 50 sheep and I don't really care what kind of quality of fiber they're producing, and I'm just zipping and clipping and sending them back out in the field. And maybe the first year you come and it's not the best fleece, but then you give some tips, and maybe over time, instead of breeding for one quality, they start breeding for two qualities, and they start thinking about it.
So sometimes
what you do makes what you do makes a huge difference long term.
Some fleeces.
Yeah, I mean, and
just saw that with that Gotland. We
Yes.
took in that beautiful Gotland, and some of you may have seen that on our feed last week, but it was spectacular. You saw it. It's some of the best
Beautiful.
Gotland we've ever handled. In that same car from these same farmers was some Gotland that we're going to sell to the rug makers for $1 a pound because it was shorn a little too late and it turned into like dreadlocks.
Yep.
Hay encrusted dreadlocks, which somebody can use enough chemicals to get clean and make a yarn, a rug yarn from it, but it was not the same. And this is the same farm, the same loving farmers, just shearing timing was off.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what I teach is just like when to shear your sheep, like when to shear your sheep. Like if I show up to a shearing in May, like I know what's coming off that sheep is going to be like maybe a little gnarly, and so we'll talk about like could you shear like before lambing, and like here are the advantages and here's the disadvantages, and like certainly it's the shepherd's choice, but like I present a kind of like I can come buy it because it's usable, I can't come buy it because it isn't. And then I mean a lot of it is really just, but like at the same time like I have to be respectful of like their priorities and like their rationales, and so I'll educate as much as I can, and I'll also like take no for an answer. Is that sometimes like the way it is.
Now,
there was one person that I could not convince not to bed in shavings. I'm like, don't bed in shavings. I can't buy this anymore unless you stop bedding in shavings.
Right.
Well,
They
most
didn't-
dairy farmers, they just can't get over the shavings.
No, dairy farmers like their
They do.
shavings.
That's
Yeah.
how we
Yep.
started. Shavings, yep.
They're
Oh,
really
dear.
good for cows.
Right.
They're not good for
No,
sheep,
for wool.
especially fleece sheep.
Right.
Yeah,
So
so I just
Katie, when
continued
you-
the
Oh, sorry.
Can I ask?
When you go on these trips, do you go by yourself? Do you have someone else with you to help haul the wool into your truck? Like, how does that work?
This is solo usually. I'm in touch with my favorite shearer, Mary Lake. She and I used to live together many years and many jobs ago when she was working at a butcher shop and I was at a goat farm. And so like she and I have kind of like a cooperative relationship because the best connection for me has actually been shearers, because a lot of them see beautiful clips and they're like, it is a shame that clip is going in like in a garbage bag and that garbage bag's in the barn rafters for like however long, because the shepherd just does not know how to deal with it or have the bandwidth to like make a plan and think about it, or the ability to write the check of significant size in spring because they're looking at 50 sheep, or they're not confident skirting. So I will stand there and I will skirt as the wool comes off the sheep. And usually the farmer has questions both for Mary and for me. right? Like, Mary, what do you think of the health of this ewe? She was limping. Like, what do you think's going on? And Mary's like, oh, I can feel a lump, or, nothing's wrong with her. She's not too thin. And then I'll talk about, like, all right, so her wool is very different from her daughter's wool. And, like, we can have these conversations. And typically I've found most farmers are just very curious to, like, learn more about wool because they don't know about wool, so they're not confident. And if I, like, my best outcome would be somebody, like, stops selling to me and starts making their own yarn and, like, realizes a retail price for their yarn.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Here's another interesting relationship that happens, though. And actually, this is the yarn in question. So Liz Shaw, mostly, like, she runs Border Collies and she has a beautiful flock of Cheviots. And she has a little farm stand on her store. But her farm, like, the proportion of the farm stand to the size of her flock doesn't make sense. Like, that farm stand would be floor to ceiling yarn. But what she does is, like, I'll make the yarn, she'll buy it back wholesale, and then she retails it, and so she can proportion the amount of yarn she needs to what her sales potential is, and then I get the rest.
Yeah,
and so it's just a really useful way to, like, give a shepherd, like, their yarn back without them having to delve into, like, developing the marketing and, like, dyeing expertise and having a dye studio and, like, all the things that, like, I have that are just my two little nubs of this, which is sorting the wool really nicely, planning what yarn to make from it, and then on the other end, like, dyeing, preparing, marketing.
I really think the sorting the wool before it comes to us is Katie's single largest strength. When it arrives here, there's very little, if anything, in it. The shorts are taken out, any vegetation is out, and it's really, it goes very quickly through our process here. It cleans up bright and nice, and we get it turned around looking great. And I really feel that careful sorting is a big part of that. Sometimes it's easier to, if your girlfriend helps you clean your closet,
Right.
it's so much less painful. Carol could throw away those things in my closet that I haven't worn in 20 years, even if they were to fit.
Right.
And she'll just throw them out, and I won't even miss them. But I would never throw them out. And it's the same thing when the farmer's sorting their own wool. They I better
Yeah.
and next
That's
thing you
a pretty
know,
special you.
yeah,
even
we
though-
like the you,
Yeah.
but her fleece
Yeah.
is no good.
Right.
We had a
Yep.
farmer do that today before you were in. We had
Okay.
somebody come by earlier in the day, and sadly, she had mixed it all together. So here was this absolutely stunning fiber next to some brittle, short pieces.
Dear.
Very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, people, if you have no sentimental attachment to the fleece itself and you don't care which sheep it came from, and you're kind of, then I can just give, like, really honest commentary. Like, I did tell a farm, like, one of your rams has really nice fleece and one of your rams is making a mess of things, and, like, you need to decide, like, what's most important to you with respect to that ram. Like, I hope he has other great features because this wool is, like, not as nice as this wool. And then I'll be like, touch this, now touch that. And, like, try to give them a sense of that so they're not just like, well, I love Steve. I'm like, well, it's great. Like, that's what, like, Steve's costing you money, right? Like, Steve's even putting money on the,
Steve
or
needs
rather,
to
Steve,
be, he needs to have his dating pool narrowed, is what you're saying.
yeah, think carefully. Yeah, think carefully about how you intend to use them, right? And that's, like, and again, this is where I'm like, I can give, like, advice and, like, assistance, and usually farmers are, like, keen to hear it, and sometimes they use Steve anyway, and, like, that's just part of the deal. So I have some kinds of other, like, I'm looking at some other projects for using, like, the bottom tier of wool. But what to me feels most important is featuring the breeds that Vermont raises best, and teaching knitters how to enjoy them, right?
Yes. So what are some of the breeds that you feel are kind of underrepresented in the industry as a whole, special to Vermont, and also harder for knitters to use?
Sure. Like, so, like, the joke that I made at the last yarn shop talk I make was, like, if you walked into a yarn shop, if you're an alien, you walk into a yarn shop, you would think that every sheep on earth is a merino. right? Because that's all there is around you. But what Vermont raises best, two different ends of the spectrum. One is luster longwools. I get a lot of calls, flocks with Romneys, Coopworths. Usually the more specialty rare breeds, those shepherds are raising them more with wool in mind. And so they typically have a smaller flock and they're using their wool. So I don't get calls about Wensleydale or Cotswold really, because no one has 100 of those. But specifically, like sometimes border lusters, less and less, unfortunately. But like really the Romneys and the Coops. So that's one side, and then the other side is Cheviots and Dorsets. And then I have one absolutely beautiful flock of Plun Forests. And those are the sheep that are in the down breed. So the down wool is going to be a shorter staple and a really like tight, springy crimp. And so those are really fantastic for like hats and mittens and anything that you want to have cling. And whereas the luster long wools are kind of a long staple, like doll hair curl kind of structure typically, or like large, like kind of large zigzag crimp. And those are going to have drape and like kind of a graceful drape. And so not for socks, because your socks will just go like down your ankles, but fantastic for shawls and cowls and any sweater where you want to have like kind of a drapey, like shoulder fitting look instead of kind of the chunky, like square shouldered, like crunchy look.
That's so cool.
So there's that, and if I had if I could think of a way to use more Dorset, I would love to think of it, because I get so many flocks, huge flocks of Dorsets, and so much of it is really quite like kind of beyond what a lot of folks are willing to wear. The main struggle with Vermont's wools is that they just aren't soft like merino, right? You're not going to mistake them for merino. They don't act like merino, and they're not going to be superwash because we don't have access to superwash processing, and neither would I want that. But I always explain to folks.
Montadale? Did I miss Montadale on your list?
There is one flock that has Montadales, but that flock is actually like Montadales and Cheviots kind of intermingled.
Yes.
If I found a flock of Montadales, I'd write them whatever size check they required. But Vermont does not have one. What was where had I gotten with that? Teaching knitters, right. And so a lot of it is, especially with the luster long wools, they have such a distinctive actual like glimmer to the fiber that knitters are kind of very actively drawn to that, like at shows and fiber festivals that I do. And so I spend some time explaining like how the wool structure gives it that glimmer. And my hope is they fall in love with the glimmer enough to like accept the texture.
I might have some spinning examples. Let me grab a couple spinning examples, actually.
I just don't have fantastic lighting, so it's not going to look...
Oh, no, you're good. Let's see what I got in here. You keep talking.
We spun some Leicester Longwool for a breed study that they did at Quince & Co. in their stone wool line. And Siri Swanson, who's another Vermont shearer, found that for us. Maybe she found it for us in her partner's flock. Yeah. But anyhow, I have a souvenir skein or 3 sitting on my desk, and it just glows. It's really that border luster is so pretty.
Yeah, but if you put dye on that, it's just amazing.
Even more.
I think. Yeah.
Beyond that, like you can make like something that we feature a lot is a lot of these flocks are natural color. So we can offer like full line of natural color wools that like, a large company is not gonna be able to do. And that's like a real selling point. Like knitters are looking for something exciting and different. And I think they're ready for something that's not merino soft. If you explain like, this sweater will last you a lifetime. Like this hat is going to look sharp and crisp in 5 years and in 10 years, and it won't look like a rag. Because this is a fiber that wears, right? And like there is something to be said for that, because if you're going to go to the trouble of knitting a really intense like colorwork sweater, is it so important that it's next to skin soft, or is it more important that your year of work looks good for more than 15 minutes before, the elbows blow out?
Really good point.
Yeah.
I will say that my experience as a knitter has taught me that you can also adjust yourself to more wool variety over time. If we pamper our skin all the time with, cashmere and merino, and that's what you're used to having next to your skin, of course, anything else is going to feel a little itchy to you when you first start wearing it. But if you just, let's say that you pick a wool that's maybe just a little bit less soft, you inch into it, and then within a few years, right. And then within a few years, you could be wearing those medium wools next to skin pretty easily. I mean, that's how I looked up. Yeah. So I've got some examples here. These are just for my own stash, so they're not Katie's yarns, but to show you guys who are watching maybe some of the different textures. So this is Border Leicester, and this is a UK flock of Border Leicester, but here it is undyed.
Entirely different from U.S. Border Leicester.
Yeah, really?
Nothing.
Yes, very much.
Okay, well, I won't show any more examples of that one.
That's just my sheet showing. Pardon me.
No, good. I'm glad you told me. And then this is some Cheviot, which you call Cheviot. And this has been dyed and then I spun it, but you can see it's got a crunch to it that's kind of different than what I think a lot of
Is that a 2-ply or a 3-ply?
Oh, this one's a 2-ply.
Katie,
yeah,
Crisp is on that.
For like wool where you squeeze it and it just goes bedouing right back, and that is the quality that it will have, like also clinging to your head, and that's what makes a hat really stick on you. And then you know what, like little like minor gauge errors are not so like mission critical. I feel like so many knitters get frustrated by like little like gauge goobers but it's because if you use superwash merino, then it has no forgiveness.
So even, I love Cheviot because it's got attitude to it. It's got like a personality behind the yarn that makes knitting with it just a lot of fun. So sometimes it's not so much about the end product, but also about our knitting experience. It's like food. Would you just want to eat white bread for every day, forever? No. So, variety is the spice of life. This one is a long wool. I'm not sure which long wool, but to give people an idea of how a long wool kind of, I don't know if you'll be able to see on camera very well with this.
I can see that it's shiny.
Yeah,
like it's just like
a sheen to it.
It's not stiff. It's drapey.
And you can see how much drapier it is than the crunchier wool.
What I used to typically do is hold up a skein, and like the skein of a down wool, like a skein of down wool held from one end will kind of do this, and a skein of long wool will do this. Like one will be like,
let's see,
and the other kind of hang out straight.
Hey, Katie, speaking of a skein of down type wool, did you get a UPS care package from us yet?
Of the
white,
which
the white fine wool, that single ply that you're getting ready to do a top secret project. I'm trying to be cagey.
No, but I haven't been to the carport yet, so I will go and take a look for that after this call.
Good. It was 31 pounds, more or less, and we're spinning the gray next. But I figured you'd want to start dyeing the white and getting it back here to get the next top secret thing done to it.
So
no pressure.
Speaking of new projects, you've been working on kind of a new project under Bobolink called Northern Fibers, right?
Northern wool. So that's kind of, the way that I've kind of come to see like Bobolink Yarns really is an upcycling project. Like we're recovering Vermont's unused wool, paying a fair price for it, and getting Vermont wool into Vermont yarn shops. So we're just connecting two markets and really saving, like kind of capturing some carbon really, and like using it. And that to me makes a lot of sense. And because I'd been at that for a couple of years, I got a call from Darn Tough Socks. And they said, every day we turn on our sock making looms and sock making knitting machines, and there's always a little bit of yarn left over, right? Leftovers for them, on their scale, like they need to make 10,000 socks every time they turn that machine on. So if they have 40 pounds of this color, but they've discontinued it, or they have 50 pounds of that yarn that arrived, but it wasn't up to spec, so they, rejected it, and another 50 pounds was sent. Like, those are just things they set aside, and they don't want to dumpster wool, and absolutely they should not, because it already has like so much effort and money and like time and resources in it, and so it makes more sense for them to give it to a company like mine than to throw it away. And like, much to their credit, they did exactly that. So I have some amount of wool from Darn Tough Socks, and we are working on making, let me just grab a little bit. This is a 4-ply lace weight. This is just a little mini sample game, but it's a 4-ply lace weight that I sell as northern wool instead of bobolink, because to me bobolink is the like Vermont, New England farm yarn, and this is the superwash merino, like absolutely standard product, but it is an upcycled product, and it has been a tremendous hit at the last 2 fiber shows I went to. It takes dye, because it's superwash, it takes dye totally differently than farm yarns. I tend to get kind of like gentle pastel-y adjacent things on farm yarns, and on superwash, because those scales are stripped away, it's just like I can make something that glows. And color,
like New Hampshire, it was great.
So you're going to have
this
line of
stopping
Right.
because of it.
Right.
That's so cool. Yeah. So you're going to have this line of upcycled yarns, recycled
yes.
yarns, and then you're also having some of that made into garments, right? We've got a few at the mill.
Yeah, so this is also Battenkill. Battenkill has been so kind as to supply some of the white wool, and then from wool that was already dyed, we have made like an initial run of scarves. And so this, I feel like this nothing says Law and Order, like, or rather like a Law and Order episode, like a lawyer walking through Manhattan with a scarf, like this one. Because it's just like
in New York City,
Manhattan socialites.
And so, like, what's fascinating about it is like we're kind of she took like athleisure colors, right? Like some kind of pre-existing colors, and like made something like refined and like more elegant out of it. Because it like she kind of like took yoga pants and made them a dinner jacket, right? And that's like I really love about it. And so this is another major step, and like such a fascinating thing to offer, especially to folks who are like non-knitters, right? Like you think about like, here's the percentage of folks who knit, and here's hopefully the percent of people who wear clothes. And so it's a little bit easier to market clothes.
Absolutely. And they're really beautiful in person. I mean, they're just
this is like luxury, like thick.
Yeah, they feel very luxurious. And I think that socialites
like,
take notice.
Yeah, socialites.
These scarves are going to be the hot new thing.
Folks who haven't matched a graphic tee with a plaid shirt, folks who are a little more sophisticated and elegant than that, like this went
but
for
they're
you.
warm enough. They could just be a great gift for anyone in your life who's going to spend time outside in the winter, which would be like everyone.
Oh yeah, so, climate with a winter. You'll love this scarf because it's so like lush and warm, and it looks like it's sharp. So I'm going to make my brother-in-law wear one on his lawyer job in Boston.
Get photos. Turn it into a photo.
He's like a celebrity. I'll pay him $1 a wear to show it off. He's like, oh, of course, my sister-in-law's fashion line.
Well, it has just been so nice to have you here with us, Katie.
Oh, really? Thank you. I'm just so passionate about what we do, and so grateful for a resource like Battenkill Fibers to be available to us, because I certainly couldn't have done this without all of your help. really like sincerely like all the advice and all the like thoughtfulness and all the like I need that by September 15th, and you're like, we're gonna find a way to do that. I truly appreciate it.
Well, thank you. You really don't need to be thanking me personally. There's quite a team here. Of course, they've all gone home, but when they do spring into action, when they know someone's got a certain event coming up, we do our best. We've had so many people struggle.
English doesn't have the two distinction, right? That's I thank you all for help.
But we've had a lot of health issues this winter. Several people really set back by health concerns, missing months at a time. And so we're doing our best for you, of course, Katie, and for all our customers who have events coming up. But we hope to get on our feet and get ahead of ourselves once again.
Mm-hmm. And Katie, someone in the comments is asking if you have that superwash lace weight already listed on your website.
Yes, you can find that at bobolinkyarns.com and under the shop.
Yeah, and we will share
a few times. Bobolink
repost. Yeah, and when I repost this tomorrow morning with the pretty card in the front of it, I'll go ahead and include all those links.
Thank you so much.
Of course. And you can also find our videos on YouTube now, guys.
I
added
saw
to YouTube.
that.
So you can watch Katie on 2 TVs.
Good job, Hannah.
I get a cookie later.
Okay, we'll send you a Wegmans cookie.
It might be stale by the time it gets to me, but it's the thought that counts. So before we leave, just a rerun of those quick little announcements. Obviously, the Central New York Fiber Festival is this weekend, and Mary Jeanne and Carol are going to be there Saturday only, 1-day appearance only. If you want to stop by and say hi or drop us some fiber. Our next Live from the Mill will be June 21st. I'll be out of town. We aren't quite sure who the guest is yet, but we're working on a great guest for you guys. You'll just have Mary Jeanne and Carol. I know it would be so disappointing without me. Yeah. And then our next community Zoom for industry folk will be June 28th, and the topic will be color palette planning and trend forecasting. So that's going to be awesome. We've also got the H&H panel coming up that we mentioned at the beginning, and we'll probably send out an email about that as well for anyone who'd be interested in attending that panel at H&H. And we're going to send an email about the new New York Textile Act that just passed. So keep an eye on your inbox, folks.
Okay, thanks for the recap, Hannah. Thanks for being just answering yes when I said you should really come and work here. That's worked out great. Katie, it's always a pleasure, and I'm so impressed by how you took that idea and grew it into such a successful business. And of course, it's been our honor and privilege to be playing our little part in what you've done. Last summer, after the pandemic was over, my little granddaughter Liza and I made it our mission to go to every yarn store in Vermont that we could get to with one diaper, because Grammy wasn't going to do an on the road fix, you know. No. So anyhow, every single store we went to in central Vermont had Bobolink brand. It was just fabulous.
So it's definitely something I'm going to be looking for when I head around in Vermont next time. I'm going to be like, oh, there's Katie. Oh, there's Katie.
Well, I think this is it. People keep joining, but Carol and I are going to go.
We're going to go home.
They'll have to catch the replay.
Yeah.
Right. I'm so sorry. But we'll have the replay for you, and I'll have it up on YouTube as well later in the week.
Yeah, okay. We'll see you guys.
Thank you. Bye.